My Family Thinks I'm Crazy, a podcast where I, your host, try to give you some tips on how you can explain all this weird, wild, crazy conspiracy stuff to the people you love most. Because that's what I've been trying to do for the past 10 years with no success.
I've been telling everybody that our government is shady, but every time I do, my family thinks I'm crazy. The hollow earth, UFOs, aliens invading, fluoride in the water, they swear skies daily. When I talk about these things, they think I'm crazy. There's no escaping anymore the evil that we're facing. Illuminati mind control, they're sacrificing babies. The end of days, but anyways, my family thinks I'm crazy.
What, they don't want to listen to you?
No, they don't want to listen. They don't want to hear it. They're just like, oh, here we go, Mark. Off again with your...
Mark being Mark again.
Yeah. So, that's the thing about podcasts is when you're on the air, and it's like therapy, If I can't talk to my family about this stuff, I'll talk to you, Matt, and all our listeners.
You just tell your whole podcast.
Yeah. So who are we talking about today, Matt?
They think that I'm crazy. They really think that I'm crazy. They really think that I'm crazy. My family thinks that I'm crazy.
You have a remarkable ear for music, Holmes.
Rather an unusual melody. However, it's often a mistake to accept something as true merely because it's obvious. The truth is only arrived at by the painstaking process of eliminating the untrue. We are not able to do that in this case without further data.
Rubbish, you're pulling my leg. You're trying to turn a company halfpenny robbery into an international plot.
Whatever's clever, better when I get the cheddar. Rat race endeavor, soul severed, untethered and weathered by chemtrails. Campaign trails, trail mix for brain cells. Pain swells as the strain dwells where the pin fell. Pin tails on politicians who tattletale and tell tall tales without fail. Then bail to set sail where winds prevail. Islands you can't mail. Off the map beyond the veil, surveil to no avail. On a scale you can't assail. Assigned to combine, to bind your mind. Redefined, blind by design. Mankind a mastermind who spellbind. Inclined to enshrine the malign. Signed a lie divine to confine you to a box, locked to the clock under a rock or on top, rolling a stop, looped in a knot, pumped like a clot, destined to rot, lost a plot I can't stop, eternal watch I see dots and blot shaped black shock, take stock of what they mock, chalk talking to a headlock, skywalk past warlocks who shell shock the block with aerosol, hemlock, sheep sleep, walk through cheap talk, Baba Black sheep balk, walk the walk, Johann Sebastian Bach, audio ad hoc, Sherlock homie, my John Hancock.
Well, obviously it isn't the lyrics. No combination of those words made any sense at all.
Elementary, my dear fellow. One of the first principles in solving crime is never to disregard anything, no matter how trivial.
Attach this to the motor of the taxi. That little attachment, my dear Mr. Holmes, contains the deadly fluid known as monosulfide. The Germans use it with gratifying results in removing their undesirable. Start the motor. Tape his mouth. Now, up with him, Hamid. You find yourself like Muhammad's coffin, Mr. Holmes, suspended between heaven and earth.
It was the old stubborn people, the people who were maybe cut from a different cloth or who have maybe experienced something that made them say, wait a minute, that was wrong, or I didn't like how that happened, and based upon them doing due diligence, them researching something, they stumble into a whole rabbit hole in a spider web of stuff that say, once you open the genie's bottle, quote unquote, it's like I can't put it back on. Like you wake up, when I wake up, why would you go back to sleep? And that's what we're faced with. We're faced with a battle, and literally, going old school, it's good and evil, isn't it? Ultimately, it's good and evil, and we've just got slightly different ways of how people want to be wicked and evil, and they're trying their hardest to grab as much of the good people because the lines are so blurred. What is good these days, and what is bad? In the verbiage, bad means good.
Sherlock Holmes, I might have known.
We thought we were the hunters, instead of which we're the hunted.
We've been fools. We played right into his hands.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast. I'm your host, Mystic Mark, and today's guest hails from the CFR network. He is my friend, Noble. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy this conversation with my friend, Noble. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are back again on the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast, and with me, returning
for I believe the third or fourth time. I'm never sure because we've had so many episodes. But this gentleman is someone who made an impression, and I've had him back on, I think, quicker than most. A new friend of mine, proud to call him a friend. We've got Noble Supreme of the UK. We know him from the CFR network, where he covers everything from fight sports to the financial collapse that we might be in right now, the political corruption and fuckery going on. So anyways, without further ado, Noble, welcome back to the show, brother. For folks who might not have heard our first conversations, give us a little 101 on everything you do, and then, of course, did you catch UFC 304? I think you did.
I certainly did, and I'll go in reverse. I certainly did. Thank you very much for giving me another opportunity to grace your listening audience. Who is Noble? What is a CFR network? CFR News, CFR Sports? Ultimately, it is me exploring the human experience. It's delving into myself, providing keys, gems, and opportunities for people to potentially improve their life. And also to look at, as you say, the fuckery which is going on with these crazy space monkeys infiltrating every asset and facet of our daily lives. Even when we're sleeping, they're trying to invade that element. So it's always good to highlight, to create these truths from the lame/name shame stream media, and shed the real light, and without an agenda as well. There's many people who have agendas these days. I think that the term would be grifters. We do not partake in any such information. Like it, love it. We present as much information as possible to allow you to navigate on all of the social medias. Actually, no, I wouldn't say all of them. TikTok, Twitter, aka X, Instagram, I'm a lot more active, and obviously podcast-wise, it's everywhere that you can consume podcast materials. Outside of Odyssey, I don't think I'm on that one yet.
Rock on. Well, yeah, I don't blame you for being on all the platforms. I try to be as far and wide as I can, and I still miss some. Odyssey, we are on Odyssey, but I don't know. That's a different conversation we could have another time. But I am a little disappointed in the YouTube competitors. I think they're all sort of dropping the ball. But speaking of dropping the ball, no offense to your beloved hometown. I don't know if he's from your hometown, but your the national pride of England was tested with this UFC card. And I know UFC and fight sports isn't our typical conversation on this show, but there was a sort of, I don't know, there was a synchromistic angle to UFC 304, and maybe that's just because I was watching it, but it did feel like the subtext behind this was Israel versus Palestine. And I just, it was maybe most pronounced with Bilal Muhammad versus, of course, Leon Edwards. But with some of the other cards as well, there was this subtext of like England versus the world, and you and I both know how England was heavily involved in the creation of the nation of Israel, the Suez Canal, and a whole bunch of other things that shaped what we now think of as the Middle East. So in that sense, the average person might not have picked up on that. Most people are unaware that England has such a huge influence on the Middle East like that. But I just couldn't help but think especially for the main card, that there was something going on there. Bilal's from Chicago. There were a couple of other Americans on the card as well. So it was like it was very much like Team UK versus Team World. It felt like. What do you think about that as a resident of the UK?
I'm glad you bring that to the wider listening audience, to be fair, because as you say, I don't think many people, because there's a little bit more of a layer to uncover. No one makes that correlation. No one would ever have made that correlation in regards to, as you say, the brains of the beast where I reside had so much to do in regards to that creation. And so much things that are taking place right now in regards to the financial backing of that state. One thing, it's almost like theatre. Obviously, it's not some people. There are some people, Mark, who I think you may have come across some of these contents, but you obviously know that it's sports entertainment.
Right.
And people are going, and I can understand the chain of thought. It's a logical process. Sports entertainment, you think of obviously the WWF/WWE pre-scripted fight, right? So people are putting one and one together and coming up with 65 and are hypothesizing that every single UFC fight is predetermined.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't have a hard time believing that, considering what I know about other more, I don't know, you could call them more organized team sports. It does seem
established, yes.
There's a little bit more room for trickery when it comes to team sports. You can maybe have a guy not performing at his best and affect the team, so you only need, maybe to bribe one guy to possibly tank the team. Whereas with a fight, you think boxing, where the old trope was a guy would be bribed to fall, basically, to let the fight, win, let his opponent win. And we tend to not see that aspect of fight sports because there's so much passion, there's so much raw energy going on that you just think to yourself, oh, there's no way these guys could be fighting each other at anything less than like 100%, right?
Yes.
And it did feel that way with the Mukev versus
oh my gosh,
with Mukev versus Kopp, right, where they were, Bisping even said it. He's like, wow, you guys had security in the ring 30 seconds ago, and now you haven't landed a punch, and you're 2 minutes into the fight. And it was it was almost like all theater at that point with that fight, where these two guys, they were just, like rabid dogs at the podium and at the press conference, but then when they get in the ring, they're very timid. And I just thought to myself, me and my buddies were kind of joking about it, but I thought to myself privately, like, what's going on with that? Because like I said, we don't talk necessarily about this on the show, but it's something I love. I love MMA. And I used to watch UFC a lot, and I sort of walked away from it at a certain point when it started to feel less authentic. Hey, maybe I was picking up on the pre-scripted nature of it, but there's definitely I maybe pinpoint it to McGregor, but there's other fighters who did this before him. But the McGregor factor, maybe Robbie Lawler would be another one, but older one, but McGregor was somebody who caused a lot of controversy outside of the ring, and I think that helped him, be this star that eventually made it to the champion place, spot, and the younger guys see that, and now I wonder how much of it is them just trying to mimic that and be controversial and play into that WWE type persona, or if
you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly as you've described it. The Conor McGregor effect is exactly what it is. They've seen that the skills in the cage or in the octagon, as it's trademarked, is tremendous. But when he picks up the bloody microphone, He's got the little Irish little twang going on. He's making everyone laugh and cheer. He's saying some disrespectful things at times. He's constantly in the eyes of the fans, the casuals, to the point where he crosses over and fights Floyd Mayweather. So that is now the blueprint in most of the athletes' minds. I either have to be the heel or I have to be entertaining. I've got to entertain. This is, as we started, sports entertainment. And this is where, again, the lines get very blurred, i.e. with Colby Covington, who was a very talented fighter, but he alleges he was going to be cut because he had a boring style. So then he started to be, very disrespectful to Brazilians and this border issue and aligning himself with Trump, which got him so much notoriety and stuff. But performance-wise, he hasn't necessarily pulled it out the bag.
Right. It's all show. It's all talk, no walk. And and I wonder, obviously that brings a lot of new people to the UFC when you have guys like Colby on social media, making non-mixed martial arts related content, right? At that point, it's political pundit. He might as well be a political pundit. But Dana White obviously is a big Trump guy, and I think there might be a factor in that as involved as well, where maybe these young guys see where Dana's alignments are and then follow suit. But MMA definitely has a largely conservative audience, at least here in the States. I don't know if it's the same dynamic around the world, but it tends to be people who are, I don't know, have the money for the pay-per-view or the know-how to how to hack into it, that watch it. So it's not really like a sport that anybody can just turn on the TV and watch generally, right? I mean,
I'll push back a little bit. I understand where you're coming from. In regards to legitimately doing it, of course, there is a huge barrier to entry in that respect at this current stage. But as you mentioned, Robbie Lawler, going back at that time, the barrier to entry was very low. And free at a point. So the core audience were your working class, middle class, and obviously some of your rich guys who saw the value in this new sort of up and coming sport. But it's the model, the amount of money that the UFC is pulling in now is astronomical. Right. It's ridiculous the amount of money that they're bringing in. So as you say, it's top heavy in regards to. It's all about the social element of it. So I go out and I spend $15,000 on the ticket. I buy the outfit. I rent the jewelry. We do the Airbnb or stop in the penthouse. We're talking 50, 60,000. You fly the escort out or whoever. This all adds up. But then we've got content now, Mark. We've got content. We've got content for the Instagram, for the YouTube. I was at the UFC events. Look at me, guys. It's fun. This is living life. So it plays so many different roles. It's not just specifically the sport. It then goes into the persona, which is being projected into the world.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I do appreciate you reminding me that because, hey, that's where I'm at. And that's where I was when I first became enamored with mixed martial arts. And you have a really good point there too on the other side of it where, for young people who are maybe in a position where they don't have a lot of options as far as, living a successful life. So sports becomes, one of those options to success. MMA has a very low barrier of entry compared to something like maybe hockey or lacrosse or fencing, tennis. Right? Yes. Where you need all this equipment, even football and basketball to a certain extent, like MMA, you absolutely need nothing. You just need another person or sometimes even less than that. You can shadow box and become, at least skilled in moving in the positions just by yourself. You're not going to get anywhere until you start training with others, but
indeed
it's one of those non-economically viable sports that our economy doesn't seem to like very much. They tend to exploit those things and bring maybe unnecessary economic factors into those. But yeah, the soccer and MMA are kind of like those two global sports now where any kid can start training, and learn pretty quickly and maybe change their life potentially.
Yes, and so many youngsters are pinning all of their hopes on being that Messi or Ronaldo. I don't know who the big popular sort of football people are these days, or soccer, as you Americans would say. But
sorry,
that is almost it's a chance in a million. It's a chance in a million. And then again, you've got children, young guys, females, well, let's say males specifically, are saying, I want to be the next Conor McGregor. The chances are slim to none. But one good thing this will do is to give a young male an opportunity to have discipline, to have a skill of self-defense, to have some knowledge of themselves, some restraints, and potentially to actually have a career. May not to the Conor McGregor level, but if you've got the determination and you've got the grit and obviously the skill, most importantly, you can go places.
Absolutely. Yeah, and at the very least, be a successful small business owner who improves the community. And I've always been a champion of martial arts in that sense, not, champion in the traditional sense, but I've always championed martial arts because of that, where when I was younger and the UFC came out, there were politicians saying it's human chicken fighting, it's human dog fighting, and then they would say
McCain was saying that, right?
Yeah, they would say things like that, and they would make it like really, they would only show maybe like the parts where, people get their foreheads split open and they're bleeding all over the mat. I mean, there was one really gruesome fight with Chris Lieben, I think. That was like a real bloody one early into the sport.
Yes.
And that one got plastered all over the news, like, is this the sport that we want our children watching? And it's kind of silly, because when you think about it, martial arts, everything I knew about martial arts, nobody was getting cut like that at the dojo. Nobody was training that hard, right? That's obviously a different context, but it changed my life in a really beneficial way. I wouldn't be doing this podcast if I hadn't done what I did as a teenager and stepped into this sort of path of martial arts that kind of broadened into pursuing knowledge and wanting to make the world a better place, right? And I think martial arts kind of instilled some of that in me, and I'm 100% with you on everything you said about, the youngsters now having that as a potential path. But it is a little disheartening when you see their role models doing things like throwing, what was it, a folding chair through, or dolly through a bus window? Like, this is getting out of proportion here. And it's not just McGregor. I mean, the Mukev cop fight where they were, like going at each other on the press conference stage. I mean, that's...
before that, Mark, you have technically before that event, the press conference, Bill, let's go chronologically. Makayev basically said, hey, Minal Camp, come over here, mates. Let me put my arm around you and let's take a photograph for our Islamic brethren. So Minal Camp said, okay, that's not a problem. And then Makayev then sucker punched him in the face. So as a result, there was a second interaction and they had a to and throw. Then there was a third. And then pre-weigh-ins, there was a fourth. And then the official weigh-ins, or the ceremonial weigh-ins, they couldn't even get to the scale.
Right.
And then as everyone saw, we're thinking, this is going to be, the bad blood that they've got. I mean, I've never seen so much security in the ring, in the octagon ever before. So I'm thinking this is going to be a very interesting fight. They're both very technical. Makayev's more of a grappler, and Mr. Camp is a striker with extraordinary takedown defense. We saw nothing for 3 minutes. The first round, 11 strikes, I guess, maybe 20 at the most was thrown. It was ridiculous. And then at the end, Mark, you'd think, we didn't perform to our best capabilities. Let's hug. Let's forget about it, even though we were trying to assault each other and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it makes that, to me, is very bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very odd way to end that. And I wasn't even aware of all of the altercations, nor even that it was at the weigh-ins. I didn't. But either way, I was very underwhelmed when the fight ensued. And there was another thing that occurred, too, that was kind of shocking. Oh, yeah, the short grabbing. He grabbed the shorts.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that was atrocious.
I don't know if Mukaev has trouble with the English language, but when the ref was reprimanding him, I mean, he couldn't care less. I mean, the ref almost ended the fight. He almost or at least took his position away, but it seemed like he was going to be like, hey, you know what, you keep screwing around, and I'm not playing with you. He was really testing the ref's patience.
He was. But let's unpack that even further. I'm glad you mentioned that element of it, because he's a good guy. He's in regards to his refereeing. There is some backstory in regards to his connection to some sort of let's say far right hate group. You don't like certain types of people, former police officer. But outside of that, he's a good referee. Now, he says, after an egregious, which I've never seen, I mean, he's half of Manel's butt cheek was out. Homoerotic for all of the other people. Like, they must have really loved that. So we're thinking, okay, I'm a referee. I'm taking a position, and then I'm going to take 1 point. I'm going to penalize you because, like, a slight, grab of the glove or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I saw his bottom, saw his ass. This is not like a fight in a bloody snooker club with 50 people. Where this is a huge organized. So we're going to take the point. But he doesn't do that, Mark, does he? He says, look, I'm a referee. Don't let me do my job. Now, if people go back and watch it, if you can, or see the clip, he says, don't let me I don't want to do my job, guys. Listen, you fight. Don't let me do my job, which is to officiate and make sure that you're safe and you don't get permanently injured. And, things are done on the up and up. It was nuts. Now, I think, as you said, he was like very nonchalant through it, wasn't he? Now, the reason was because at the press conference, they asked him about that, and they said, Dana says, PFL's probably got himself an undefeated young fighter. We're not re-signing his contracts. Now, that's clearly to do with multiple things which they haven't disclosed. I would imagine a lot of it's to do with unprofessional behavior. Let's unpack it even further.
Yeah.
They're martial artists. The Bushido way. You know about honor and respect. And if you have a fight, you are supposed to shake hands and say, look, you were the better man, or I was the better man. That is how it is done within the martial arts system. So it's mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling. But for that to take place and them being professional prize fighters. So it's not like these are two competing gyms, and they're saying, look, every month we're going to have straighteners, and we're going to see who's the best gym. No money involved, but this is just for us. That's fine. They're prize fighters, so that means they sign a contract to make a certain weight, to fight at a certain date. What on earth is all of this fighting behind the scenes business, Mark?
Yeah, right. It's a sport. Yeah, no, it becomes this thing that sends a really poor message to the young people watching who might be looking up to someone like Mukaev, especially considering, again, going back to what I said initially, like the overtones with, because I don't know if UFC has done this in a move to sort of include more people, or if this is just like how it all took
place because of what's his name?
Below.
No, the Dagestani, the first one that
Habib.
Yes, Habib.
Yes.
So Habib, I feel like, Habib really brought a lot of Muslim fighters into the league, and I don't know if there's some sort of like conspiracy behind that, because I have heard there's some strange connections between some Dagestani coach or promoter, somebody in the sort of behind the scenes who is a martial artist, but not necessarily, fighting on any bills. But yeah, I'm just curious about that, because it does seem like.
Are we talking about the manager, Ali Abdelaziz, who was a former
we might be
FBI informant and works for the Muslim? Okay, yeah. Okay, so So we spoke about this on a live stream I did yesterday, actually. So yes, you are indeed correct. And it makes you think, So we go from being in Egypt, being an athlete, etc., competing, blah, 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 connected with the American Muslim Brotherhood or something. Was that what it was called? And doing all of this stuff, then becoming a CIA informant, and then is now the dominant force within MMA coaching, MMA management, I should say, within the UFC, PFL, formerly the World Championship Fighting, World Series of Fighting, I should say. There was issues with that because he was I don't know the full detail. There's a lot of detail, but there was a conflict of interest because he was a coach, and I think he was maybe a matchmaker, or he had some kind of investment into it. There was some odd things, should we say? But I think the Khabib thing, it was what that did is opened up that region, that Dagestani region, that Chechen region, to that style of fighting, that mauling, grappling, sort of, as they call it, Dagestani style of fighting. And there was just everyone. Well, Dana was especially enamored with it. The work ethic. There wasn't too much problems. There wasn't doing, apart from missing weights. Good old Khabib and his tiramisus. Apart from missing weight and stuff, he didn't have a problem. He's not, cursing at people. He's respectful because he's a Muslim. He's Islamic. Right. So I think that played a part. And also, if you think about it financially, there are a lot of Islamic brethren and sisters across this plane of existence. Some of them have a lot of money, right? Mm-hmm. Abu Dhabi, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So it makes perfect sense. If I can get a load of Islamic fighters who are good, surely Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia are going to say, look, you want to see these fighters here? Come on, UFC. Oh, I've got a blank check here. What kind of super fights can you create for us, sir?
Right. Well, and it almost has this nationalistic context where you have, clearly a geopolitical conflict going on, and then, Bilal Muhammad, who I'm not sure if he is Palestinian or just
second generation Palestinian.
Okay, so then so he's fighting with the Palestinian people on his back. I don't know if Leon has that same power behind him, and that, I mean, whether it's we're looking at this from
well, let me just add on before you continue. Not in the same way. We all support him being a Black British from the Caribbean and the Caribbean, specifically Jamaica, let's say, are supporting him. But he doesn't necessarily, and this is my opinion, and based upon what we saw on Sunday, he doesn't necessarily put that shield and allow that shield to empower him, because Bilal, you could see he was fighting with a purpose, for a purpose.
Yeah, I was saying it to my friend, as we were watching the fight. I'm like, Leon, I don't know. I mean, I was saying, like, Leon, we can't count him out. Remember what happened, with the head kick, and my buddy was like, well, does lightning strike twice, and he had a good point. And I wonder with Bilal, like, yeah, that feeling of like, you know, how much of a failure would I be if I lost while this is going on in the world? I need to win to inspire, you know, my people who are down right now. I mean, just that alone, not even putting in like our conspiracy tinfoil hat perspective, that is powerful. Like, no matter who you were watching the UFC that day, you know, I made the joke with my buddies like, oh, we know who the white chicks are rooting for when the fight started. But it really did feel, you know, powerful.
Yes.
And I have nothing against Palestine. I'm not rooting for Israel in any way. I mean, I remember when Roger Waters was being censored and banned for sticking up for Palestine, and now, you know, everybody's doing it. Meanwhile, nobody's like, oh, hey, Roger, sorry about that. Yeah, we didn't, you know, sorry we didn't invite you to the Grammys because you were talking about the genocide of the ongoing genocide of these people. But you know, it's whatever the flavor of the week is, whatever serves the you know, global empire's particular purpose at the time. That's what the media invives people with. So yeah, it just, I don't know, looking at it from that angle, I did kind of root for Bilal in a sense, but I was rooting for Leon to have one of those killer comebacks the way, because even like Molly McCann, that, you know, I don't want to sound like a misogynist or anything, but I think a lot of fans kind of get you know, a little bit like, oh, girl fight, but Molly really, like, she was in it the whole fight, and Brazil was, you know, she had her like number. Yeah, she had her like locked in with those leg kicks and the knees. Oh man, she not. But the thing, my point is Molly like had that "you're not gonna knock me out" fight in her, and that was really powerful. And I think Leon, you know, maybe under different circumstances, it would have been nice to see that from him, but he was just up against so much with Bilal and that political overtone there.
Yes, and I'm right there with you. Obviously, but Leon Rocky Edwards, former champ, is from my city, Birmingham, Erdington, to be precise. I mean, it's okay. You can't make it up. You cannot make up this story. He's inspired so many people. It was very unfortunate. I'm so sad, but at the same time, that Bilal story is I won't use past tense language. It is amazing. I mean, the embedded episodes, and he goes, I genuinely don't watch them, and I thought, you know what, I've got nothing. Let me just unwind rather than doing studying. You know, you got to have the balance of, or let me watch the embedded. And he's adopted a child from Palestine who had some terrible injury to his leg. He's rehabilitated him, and he's given him a better life in America. I mean, that is so selfless and touching. That's real work, that is. That's really affecting change through him beating people with his hands, knees, and stuff.
Yeah. No, that's a great point to highlight. You're absolutely right. And a lot of these guys, you know, they're fighting, and I'm sure the money they earn doesn't just go to them. You know, with all this going on, they're giving back. They're, you know, raising awareness, and yeah, it's really powerful. I did not know that, but yeah, that is something that definitely adds to Bilal's character. It was the thing that I liked the most, you know. I mean, I'm never a fan of people who take that approach. Generally, his fighting style isn't my favorite. I'm more interested in somebody who
strikes.
So I'm a big striking fan. So, but those slams really impressed me. The takedown capability, and to Leon's credit, he did a great job towards the end, turning it around multiple times. He had that killer elbow right at the end, just a hair too late. If he had pulled that off maybe in the middle of the fifth round, he might have really turned it around. And you could tell he had that capability. Yeah. But yeah, with Bilal, those takedowns, I mean, he really, really rocked him with that one where he dropped him completely vertical.
Spiked him.
Yeah.
Yes, on his head. Yes, indeed. I mean, look, I hate to say it, but Bilal dominated the champ, man. He dominated. And it's a weird thing because if we look back, so Rocky didn't necessarily dominate the hell out of Kamaru Usman on the second one. He got the head kick KO. He actually finished him, first person to finish him. Then had a pretty dominant performance for the part 3. Who did Kamaru get the belt from? Tyrone Woodley. And he dominated the hell out of Tyrone Woodley for the whole 5 rounds. And poor Din Thomas was in the corner saying, Tyrone, are you awake? What's going on? Pull the trigger, man. You're going to give this damn belt away? What are you doing? Lost the belt. Tyrone Woodley, where did he get the belt from? Robbie, Ruthless, Lawler. Was that the first round or second round? I can't even remember. It's been so long ago. But that weight division, if you're going to lose the belt, you're going to bloody lose it.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a quick break to thank our sponsors. Of course, you've heard me say it before. You've got to be curious by now, and maybe you even tuned in to my interview with the man himself, Adam Schell, the founder of Brain Supreme. You can find them at brainsupreme.co. If you're curious about microdosing and you want a trusted source to get it from, hell, you can even get coached through the process with their help. Go to microdosingmastersbrainsupreme.co. Okay, use the promo code crazy15 at checkout and you'll save and you'll support the show, so I don't have to do all these ad reads all the time. If you don't want to hear ad reads, of course you can go over to the Patreon or the Substack, where I've talked at length about the microdosing benefits that I've experienced. And of course, don't forget Crazy15 for that discount. Adam Schell is the man. If you're not sure yet, go back and listen to that episode I recorded with Adam Schell, SCHELL, Adam Schell. And great stuff. Brainsupreme.co, crazy15 at checkout to save 15% off and support the show. And of course, our foremost favorite sponsor, the Hit Kit, the number one way to get lit, stay lit with the new Hit Kit designs, just in time for you to unwind in the summer, wherever you're at. The Hit Kit is perfect, whatever you're smoking, a cigar, a cigarette, a blunt, yay, a spliff, a joint, whatever it is, put it in your Hit Kit. It'll be safe and sound. It won't stink. It's smell proof. It's windproof. It's waterproof. It's foolproof, folks. Get yourself a Hit Kit and save whatever you're smoking on from getting squished, squashed, or wet, or who knows what. Keep it in the Hit Kit. That way you're always ready to get lit. Enough with the rhymes already. Actually, no one said that. But anyways, thank you, folks. Great stuff on all fronts. If you sign up on the Patreon or the Substack, and you don't have to hear me anymore with these ads. No interruptions, just the good stuff. So we'll be back to the conversation after one last interruption to our dynamic ads, and then we'll be right back to this conversation with my friend Noble from the CFR Network. It's a good point. And the other fight that really impressed me, and I had never seen this guy before, and my friends that I was watching the fight with, they were both like, this guy again. And I don't know, maybe you can already guess who I'm hinting at. Yeah, Patty. And I liked the way his name's King now, but I liked the way Bobby Green approached the fight initially. It did seem like he had a chance there, but oh my gosh, Paddy just dominated.
Yes.
He just really, I mean, the striking, it seemed like it could go either way. And then, because, you know,
It was the power. Paddy was chewing up that leg, man.
right.
He was chewing. And as I say, size-wise, Paddy's big, man. Paddy's a big, and he's all credit to Paddy. As you said, you preempted it. This guy, because he was annoying. Look, I'm a Brit. He was flipping annoying. He, at that point, and he still does, he's for a certain type of demographic. No disrespect, but it's those football hooligan types. And I use that for British people. They'll know what I mean by that. I don't mean they're literally hooligans, but they're, it's those type of people. He's taken stock of himself. He's had a child. I think he's matured now. The antics, getting big between fights and all that kind of stuff, he realizes this is my professional career. And he showed levels, man. Nobody expected that. 3 minutes and 22 seconds into the first round, Mark.
Well, and let me ask you what you thought about that finish, because I agree with everything you just said, and Paddy seems to me like, at least for the American audience, he like appeals to like that the American football fan, soccer fan, and then also like that e-boy kind of I don't know, like TikTok generation seems to like him a lot. But when it comes to that finish, which again, very impressive, I instantly became a fan of him just based on the fighting. I haven't seen any of his, out of the ring antics, but the finish was interesting because he clearly finished him with the triangle, but he transitioned to an armbar and the ref tapped for Bobby Green. What do you think about that? Because I didn't notice it until the end, and my buddy made fun of me because I'm like, I thought Bobby tapped, and he's like, no, you racist, that was a glove.
He was out, man. Bobby was pretty much out once he'd flipped over and he'd fully went in for the transitioned into the arm, but he was out. Bobby was totally out. The referee, from what Big John McCarthy's explained, is that the referee was in a tunnel vision moments rather than looking at, and obviously the majority of the times in a submission, the referee's looking at your face. Then at some point, to see if you're actually, get your eyes open, you're okay, your eyes haven't rolled back. Then you've got to look at the body. Is the body moving? Is it still active? Is it dead weight kind of thing? And what the referee was doing, he was just looking at the face, apparently. He was well late on that stoppage. Yeah. Before, I would say, even before the flip, I think he could have been out.
Well, and he could have seriously, I don't know if his arm was injured at all in that.
He was.
Oh, wow.
He was.
So, yeah, and that potentially was the ref's fault because, if that was stopped sooner, he wouldn't have had the transition to the armbar, which almost, it just seemed unnecessary because you could see, as the arm was going back, King's face was completely just like purple and his eyes were closed. You couldn't, it wasn't obvious that he was knocked out, but his face, like in hindsight, I'm like, oh yeah, he was out.
Yeah. Tremendous performance, tremendous. That's his best performance to date, and he's now in the top 15. Congratulations! I did think that would have been a more of a competitive fight, but he did the thing.
To bring it back to that McGregor point, like Paddy's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's a stretch to say this, considering where I'm comparing an Irishman to a Brit, but I don't know. It definitely feels like he's pulling a little bit out of McGregor's playbook. But my friend was like, no, he's different. But I guess my friend's a fan of McGregor, so.
I would. You're right in ways, but you're right in certain ways. Put it that way. Okay. It's just McGregor's McGregor. There won't be another Conor McGregor.
Right. But at this point, I guess the point we were making earlier is true, where anyone who wants to make a name for themselves in the UFC has to inevitably at this point do some sort of stunt
that, runs the risk of them being compared to McGregor at the least, right? So, and I mean, hey, Jones has had his own, fair share of stunts. I don't know, not all of them exactly calculated, but yeah, it's funny. I've met John Jones. That was one of the first. I went to a UFC like meet and greet in Boston. It was after UFC, I think 207. And
Wow.
And I met John Jones as I was leaving and he was getting into a car out front, and everybody was kind of like stopped because he had just become like he had just become the champ around that time. So everybody was like, "Oh, Jones," and he was so gracious to everybody, so kind. He was like making his car wait so he can take time for everybody who wanted to say hi to him. And I just shook his hand, and I was like so starstruck that I just said, "Good fight good." And I'm like 16 years old, and I walked away like, what did I just say?
What did I say?
Yeah, but it was one of those moments where you look back and you're like, wow, I can't believe I met that person. Like considering because he had just, he could have lost the next fight and then just kind of faded out. But no, he's on, on his way now to being possibly one of the most legendary outside of the ring. Yeah, he's had some controversy, but inside of the ring, he's pretty much undefeated. And this kind of leads me to my next thing for you. I heard that they're going to make the 12-6 elbow legal now, which is the only reason that he has I guess a flaw on his record. Yeah. So do you think that would maybe? Yeah. Which it was he just got slaughtered. Jones just slaughtered him. It was. So I wonder, is there any chance they would retroactively do anything like that? Or
okay, I'm glad you brought that up because Dana White has been, since that's happened, he's been lobbying to get that taken off the records and reversed to be obviously a no contest or a no contest, basically not a DQ win for Matt Hamill. Dana White has a very unhealthy desire to prove that John Jones is undeniable the greatest mixed martial artist ever to have walked this plane of existence. It's becoming a bit like, okay, Dana, we know that you think John Jones is the best, but there has to be some kind of criteria, sir.
Well, do you think that there's some funny business going on? Because with Jones in particular, his family, I don't know his parents as far as what their connections are, but he is from like a super athlete family. His brothers are Baltimore Ravens NFL players, and
exactly.
So he has some kind of celebrity status in that sense.
Well, I've thought the only thing I can think of, I don't think that would allow him more than what he's been able to kind of get away with, in essence.
Right.
And not even just what he's been able to get away with, like moving events because of the picograms. Remember that controversy?
Yeah.
Moving a whole card from one side of the country to another side of the country. I mean, how much money that would have cost the company? But he does that. I think he's got cards on him. I think he's got some kind of cards. Yeah, he's got something. Like they must have went out somewhere and partied really hard, kind of thing. And he's like, "Yo, Dana, you remember when we was in Salt Lake City? You remember, Dana? Yeah, okay. So like, you just make sure that I can be inactive. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, Johnny Jones is a tremendous fighter, especially on his meteoric rise, I should say, to be becoming the lightweight GOAT. The last 6 fights of John Jones, maybe is it just 6? Yeah, 6, including his heavyweight demolishing of Cyril Gane. Haven't been the heavyweight debut He was over in a minute and a half, 2 minutes. We didn't see John Jones. He looked out of shape. He looked silly. Congratulations, he's the champ, but he's been inactive. Based upon that, he's in the conversation, but if you're more active, then we can say there's no doubt about it. Active-wise, active GOATs, yeah, we can say John Jones, he's double champ. Remember, he was inactive when Francis Ngannou was the champion, and Dana White was asked, "Oh, so what do you think about the fight between John Jones and Francis Ngannou?" And Dana White says, "I think John Jones should move down to 185, not move up. Francis is the baddest mother effer on this." But how things do change, Mark, eh?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder, maybe it's something to do with the sluggishness of having more weight, more muscle. I don't know. I haven't kept up with those fights. I didn't see any of those.
Well, ultimately, the point I'm making is he's not tried and tested. John Jones is known for going 5 rounds where possible, where required. Dominic Reyes, pretty much everyone says that if we were judges, Dominic Reyes would have been the champion. Thiago Santos gave him trouble. He had one leg. His knee was done because of those nasty kind of unsportsmanlike stumps to the flipping patella that John Jones does very frequently. Destroyed Thiago Santos, but Thiago Santos still gave him that work. Oh. It's an interesting one, to say the least.
Yeah. I did a little bit of digging, as much as I could do here now, but it turns out Jones's father is a pastor at a church. Let's see, what's the proper name of the church? The Mount Sinai Church of God in Binghamton, New York, which I think Binghamton, isn't that where the Mormons came from? I'm almost certain that's the Mormons.
Sounds familiar. It does sound very familiar.
Yeah, I think the Mormons were around that way. Maybe not that place centrally, but I feel like I've talked about Binghamton before. That's weird. But yeah, okay. Nothing really too much to say about that, I guess. But Binghamton is the confluence of the Susquehanna and the Chenango River. In a synchromistic context, the Susquehanna River is very powerful. So, hey, if Jones is from that area, maybe that's adding to his fortune or his fate. But yeah, it's definitely... He's somebody that I've always been fond of, alongside of Anderson Silva.
Oh, yes.
They made a huge impression on me as a young martial artist, mostly because I'm tall and lanky, and they're both sort of tall and lanky. And I just thought, okay, well, if they're excelling as tall and skinny, I can too. Let me just sort of see what the moves work for them and go off of that. And it definitely, like there were moves that I incorporated that. Yeah, it's funny now because like the only time I do these moves is like in the parking lot outside of my apartment building. So I wonder what the landlord thinks, like with the security camera. I'm doing like a spinning back kick to my car, and he's like, "Huh, what's going on? Mark's fighting ghosts again."
Guy again.
Mark's ninjaing to his car, but yeah.
Hey, Peggy Sue, come and look at this guy. He's doing that jiu-jitsu stuff.
Yeah. But as we sort of fade out of the MMA topics, I do maybe want to ask you one more thing about it in general, because Dana White clearly has a political orientation that he's not afraid to swing around. He was also at the Tom Brady roast. He kind of inserted himself into that. I don't know if the American football made its way into your realm as much as it did here, but the whole Tom Brady roast was a big deal. I'm not a football fan, really, in general, at all.
Riddle me this, sir. Riddle me this.
Sure.
What is the point of these degrading? These are humiliation rituals for the stars, I take it.
Well, I guess you could look at it that way. Sure, I wouldn't argue against that at all. But as a comedy fan, I think the roasts historically began as a way to have, like, let's say, the golden oldies, right? You'd have like Tony Bennett and Frank Sinatra and like these guys who to the average person were like bulletproof. They were perfect. They were, they were larger than life. So then at the time, the thought from the comics was, well, let's have these guys, here, let's roast them and show that we're all human. That was in my mind the initial impetus of the roast. Then there's also, I don't know, maybe there's a secret society sort of aspect to this, because there's the whole Friars Club, and the Friars Club in New York would do roasts. So, and this would be like almost like a Freemasonic kind of thing, where you would have like all your brothers roast you when you did something kind of like you had a major accomplishment. It was a way to like humble you, and keep everybody on the even keel. So I think that's kind of where roasts originate in that sense. But comedy has evolved a lot, and personally, I am not a fan of the roast master general Jeff Ross, especially considering the not even allegations, but basically proven criminal activity as far as him and children, sexual activity with children, some sort of relationship with like a 14-year-old, and he was well past 30. So yeah, he's somebody I don't have any fanfare for, but outside of that, I used to watch the roasts and whatnot, and now I'll watch the roasts, but I'll skip Jeff Ross purposely, just because I as a conspiracy theorist and as a truther, I just can't support that person. But yeah, the Tom Brady roast, the reason I bring that up is because Dana White, it almost felt like he and Tony Hinchcliffe hosted the podcast Kill Tony, which Kill Tony has its own sort of like chip on its shoulder as far as like, it's a super popular YouTube show, but it hasn't really gotten any like love from the mainstream world of comedy, which I think that, bothers the host Tony. So they kind of stepped into the Tom Brady roast, and it was just, I don't know, if you haven't seen it, I guess it's not worth bringing up. But I guess my to round out my question is like, what are your thoughts on Dana White and his role as UFC president kind of becoming more than that? He seems to be stepping into this like wannabe billionaire Elon Musk type of, like being like a pundit or political influencer.
He understands the power. I mean, outside of the financial power that he's got and the circles that he moves in, he's clearly got very clever people around him. He's always surrounded himself since he convinced, the Fertittas to purchase the UFC. I don't know where this is ultimately going to go, but I think he's aligning himself. The more money you make, the less taxes you want to pay, the more you want to see things how you want to see them, kind of thing. So ultimately, you've got to play the quote unquote game, haven't you? You've got a bird with two wings. Which wing do you want? The left or the right wing?
Yeah,
I think, and that also aligns with the ethos of. I mean, Dana White is he Gen Z? I mean, something like Gen Z. He's Gen X, isn't he? He's not a boomer. Dana White's not a boomer.
Yeah, he doesn't strike me as that. I think he's a little younger than the boomer generation.
This is it. So I think that he's been in the time where he's seen like myself, I've seen so much stuff take place. I'm not clearly in the position that Dana White's in, but he now has an opportunity to try and reimagine how things should kind of be, because there's a lot of stuff he says, like this woke culture. He can't stand it. There's so much things that he talks about, which, you know, I'm in line with. Many people are in line with some of this, a lot of things, or well, I'll say some of the things that the orange man himself talks about. I'm in line with,
Right.
You know, the truth will always be truth. Elements of statements will resonate with certain people.
Right.
I am no respecter of persons of sorts. I'm a respecter of the information and the truth that comes forth from the person. So I just think he's playing his game, should we say?
Fair. Yeah, that's well put. I agree with it. And yeah, I think I've talked about this a couple times in the past on the show with Donald Trump, where I'm like, yeah, I kind of like some of the things that he's done, and I see how he's been sort of suppressed and basically pushed out from the, I don't know, you can say the old school or the original corrupt faction, whatever they are, but it's two birds of the same feather, and Trump is no better than any of these. He just represents a different faction, right? And I have trouble saying that on the show sometimes, and then people message me and they're like, oh, I can't believe you like Trump. And I'm like, well, listen, I'm not saying I like Trump. I'm just reminding people how different he is from any other politician we've ever had. I mean, we've never had a president where the media completely goes AWOL against them. And I just wonder why that was and still is, and they have not let up. I mean, the guy almost gets his head blown off, and they say Trump gets shot at. They don't even use the word assassination. They just say shots fired.
Was that CNN that did that?
Yeah, it was CNN. They were like, yeah, shots were fired at a Trump rally. It's like, no, President Trump, former President Trump's life was almost taken from him. So yeah, there's angles to this that are like totally baffling for me still.
Look, Mark, this is the whole purpose of these crazy space monkeys, these demonic flipping shape-shifting reptilians, as Mr. Ike would say. This is the whole plan. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun. We know this, but what they can do, these money masters, these wizards, they can kind of turn things on their head of sorts. Because in my opinion, when I was growing up, it was Margaret Thatcher and her counterpart was Ronald Reagan. Now, I see Ronald Reagan, I see Donald Trump, I should say, as a spitting image, literally, like as in the Puppet Show in the UK, spitting image of Ronald Reagan. The talking points, light for light, depending on what speeches he's doing. You know, the TV personality becoming a president, right? This is a damn movie, but because they're literally changing the dynamics of everything. So no longer are we having nuclear families. Everything, like Michael Jackson came out with an excellent album. It was called Bad. And that changed again and influenced so many people. So is that car good? Yeah, it's bad, you know. It's really bad. That girl's bad. And these days, let's move it up into the Gregorian year of 2024. You'll have female saying, I am a bad female dog. I'm a bad bitch. So bad means good. It's almost like Vampire in Brooklyn. Bad's good. Good is bad, right? They've changed it so much. So no, that's why they're doing it. They're presenting Trump to be like, I mean, because how would the media system be able to attack a president and say all these stuff and just be totally left, and then the other one will be like more like factual, like, yeah, President Trump's doing this or former President Trump's done this. This is to fracture the psyche of the people. This is to divide, to separate, to put you in that. We need the boxes. We've got the boxes. We got the boxy room that we're in now. The box room is within the box house or the box apartment or the box condo. We come out the box. We get in the box lift. We get in the boxy car. When do we come out the box, Mark? And then the television, the media, the social media, everything is just bombarding you. Get in this box. Hate women, hate yourself, lust after flipping another self. Don't love yourself. Don't look in the mirror and realize that you were created perfectly, and all you need to do is to love you and don't externalize you. No, that's not what it is. We're going to flip it all upside our heads. We're going to get people to put snake venom in their heads. They're going to put stuff in their lips, into their bodies, concrete, all kind of damn stuff, transis, all this debauchery, fuckery. That is, and you can't say anything, Mark, because if you say something, there's a problem. We've got a problem, Mark. You cannot say anything relating to what we're promoting. If we're promoting it, fall in line, get your head down, watch the cracks in the ground, and just nod your head. That's all you got to do. If you want us to survive in the system that we're creating with digital currencies, with CCTV cameras, with facial recognition everywhere, if you want to survive in there, you've got to toe the line, because we will make examples. If you like something on Twitter, we will come to your home and we will say, under the what is it, the Telecommunications Act, we're going to seize all of your electronics and we're going to take you to the police station, young Steve. Why are you doing that? Oh, well, because you've been your activity on Twitter, and we're going to keep you in the cell for 24 hours. We're going to take your DNA via a swab. We're going to do digital fingerprints. We're going to take a video of you, and we're going to drag you through the judicial system. And potentially, and it's been done here, Mark, you will serve a year in jail for Twitter, for liking on Twitter. So wow. It's a Madden. It's a John Madden, and we're not talking about the football game.
Well, and yeah, the fact that you can not even be penalized for something you're saying, but agreeing with something someone else has said through a like, I mean, that's ridiculous. Now,
freedom of expression, well, we have freedom of expression. You have freedom of speech. There's no such thing.
Right.
There's no such thing. Enemy of the states, the only privacy you're going to have is in your damn brain. You don't have any privacy anymore. Well, we don't have privacy.
Yeah, and with Elon Musk's Neuralink, we might not even have brain privacy any further than we, because I mean, I heard this being talked about seriously. I forget which podcast, but I think I commented something like Klaus Schwab, gets off to conversations like this one, because they were talking about how eventually so many people will be connected to Neuralink that it'll be like survival of the fittest type of, oh, well, you need it otherwise, because everyone's just going to be thinking at hyper speed. And I don't know, it just, these guys were not qualified for this conversation. I mean, this was like a comedy podcast that I'm commenting on. It wasn't like Neil deGrasse Tyson debating somebody or something like that. But I just kind of got upset, like, wow, is this where the average person's been programmed with sci-fi and all this video games and all these different fictions to think that Neuralink is that seamless and it's going to be that easy and it's that close? And I'm like, I just personally, I don't know, maybe, hey, maybe I'm a hippie, but I think that none of that is going to work the way people think it does or will. I don't think that it's going to be think about how much trouble we have just keeping like our phones charged, or these Teslas now charged, or like I just bought a GoPro for the podcast and, the thing dies every 2 hours. It's like you're telling me that they're going to have everybody hooked up to some kind of Neuralink system computer and it's just going to be inside of our bodies? Like, what?
Oh, yeah. Mark. The wonders of technology means is any implants because the body has an electrical impulse, they will use the electrical impulse from the body to charge the mini battery in these devices.
So we're all going to be like bodybuilders, like super powerhouses, like being able, like, I can't imagine that these, like, the average, computer bound, what do you call them? Generation, what's the youngest generation right now?
Z.
Yeah,
Z,
the Zers.
Well, actually, no, I'll mean to alpha and beta. Alpha that.
Well, the ones that are in their young 20s, the ones that are the most politically active. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't imagine they even have the bio capacity to sustain their own life, let alone this augmented system that would have to be implanted into them, right? I mean, again, like, maybe I'm a Luddite here, but I just feel like we're living in this world of illusion where they tell us, oh, this technology, it's going to be so seamless. Meanwhile, I work with technology and I see how it's flawed and how it doesn't work the way you want it to often, frequently. And, something as simple as keeping it charged or keeping a battery, like, this is a big flaw. This is a big issue. And you're seeing it with the electric cars because, people like me who have, maybe a 4-hour trip if I want to go somewhere or maybe longer, I'm never going to put my faith into an electric car for something like that. It's just not in the cards for me in my lifetime.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. I mean, let's look at it. When I was growing up, electric vehicles were, there was something called Tomorrow's World. It used to come on BBC One. At this time, we only had 4 channels. And so we didn't have Sky. No, Sky wasn't even around. There was no cable because cable came later in the UK. So we had 4 channels. Tomorrow's World would come on, and periodically there would be like competitions, or they would do like an in-depth look into like new vehicle technology. And Mark, we're talking 1980. Let's say 1986 upwards. There was stuff earlier, but let's go to vivid memories. 1986, there was cars. Battery-powered cars, and they had solar panels all over them, Mark. Woohoo! And you could plug them in and charge them, and then also while they're out exposed to the sun, what do you think's happening? Charging the batteries. So you're not relying on having to utilize coal-burning electrical plants or nuclear power, which, from my understanding, is just basically boiling hot water. Like, the technology is more than readily available. They're putting these damn panoramic sunroofs. This seems to be the new craze, the best thing to have. Put some damn solar panels all over the vehicle. What's the use in doing that, Mark? No, but why would we do that? We need to be selling you a new car every 4 years now. That's how we've got it.
Right.
When we were first manufacturing cars, you would have the car for life generally. Then, move into the 80s to the 90s, 90s to the 2000s. You want to be changing your car every time. There's the facelift model.
Yeah. Well,
every 2 years.
I'm almost 30. I'll be 30 this year, and I've driven 7 different cars since I started driving when I was 18. So in 12 years, that's 7 different cars. That's a new car every 2.5 years, roughly. Wow.
Yeah. But also, because you're in America, it's a different thing. I mean, vehicle ownership versus leasing and that kind of stuff, that's your model in America. Not many people are buying, like, you don't buy houses in America. That model for those big purchases, it's a lease kind of thing. Whereas in Europe and the UK, historically, we would save. And then once you've got enough money, we'd sell the old one, get the value, or do the PX and then buy the vehicle. Because as it's noted, you will have nothing and you'll love it. People don't have the disposable income to even contemplate purchasing vehicles. The cost of vehicles, let's say an average car in the UK, average small, like a super mini, a small size vehicle, like what you've got minis over there now, right? Mini Countrymans, I think you've got in America driving around. Yeah. That kind of size vehicle. So you in the UK in the 90s, even up to the thousands. You could pick one of them up for like £15,000. That equivalent model vehicle is now £27,000.
Wow.
And there's clearly changes because they're huge now. These were little super minis that you could go around town, had a little bit of performance with them, nicely spec'd, etc. Now they're like these SUV things. They're huge. They're absolutely massive vehicles now. The weight of them's gone up. The performance have gone down, but they've just loaded with tech, lane assistance, all this foolishness in there. No manual gearbox anymore. Everything's automatic, which is good to a point because that gives you, the driver, more opportunities to be alert on the road. In England, we can't be driving around texting and calling like America. But people do it, unfortunately. But yeah, again, you know what I mean. When you driving stick, as you call it, there's a lot more driver involvement.
Oh yeah.
If you drive in auto, you just
I would never be able to smoke as many blunts as I do if I was driving a stick. I mean, that would be a whole hassle to roll them. Yeah. Well, how could you roll it if sometimes I gotta roll on the go and
oh shit.
you
see, you know what? I think there's something if you're Lloyd, listen. I had a friend called Johnny. I haven't seen him in absolute years. He was 6'7", 6'7". Yeah, about 6'7". I think he was tall as hell.
Overgrown like me.
Yeah, just like he exactly the same thing. We'd be driving around, obviously not on surface roads. It would generally be motorways, and he'd have it on his fucking lap, man. Blah 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 blah, and it wouldn't be like a long process. We're talking like a minute and a half or so. Spark, away we go.
Right.
I'm like, you were skilled, sir. I'm not even gonna attempt anything like that.
Well, let me tell you what, it does take practice, but you need to be high on a couple of well-rolled joints, blunts, spliffs, whatever you prefer, to sit through that Olympic ceremonies. Excuse my segue, but we were talking about the UFC, and I wanted to segue over to the Olympics, but I forgot, and I brought up Trump instead. But I cannot.
Yeah,
we have to talk about this. I mean, it's the 33rd Olympic Games, which, I mean, come on, folks, 33. You know there's going to be symbolism. And, of course, they go to Paris for this one, which, I mean, might be one of the most Masonic cities in the world. There's so many different, historically major worldly influential powers have moved through that land area, from Rome to Britain to now all the royal families and so on and so forth. The Nazis went through there.
Yes.
And, I mean, this place is as far as world history goes, I mean, Paris is a big psychopomp. You have the catacombs underneath, you have the river Seine that flows through the city, and all the architecture, all of the grotesques, the gargoyles, and all of that, from the churches to the schools and so on and so forth.
The Cathedral of Bones in wonderful gay Paris, the catacombs littered with damn bones. Now, another thing outside of that sidebar, it's a flipping dump, gay Paris. I've seen the amount of videos I've found this algorithm for some strange reason of these people going to places and saying, this was my expectation of gay Paris. And I get there and there's rubbish, rats, and just filth everywhere. And you're like, because I haven't actually been to gay Paris. Historically, and for the architecture, I would love to go. But I hear that they're very rude. The Parisians are very rude. It's very expensive as well. The traffic is a nightmare. All my friends who have been there, they said, yeah, if you want, but you're not really missing much. Parking's terrible. But back to the Olympics. Woohoo! I mean, like, you can't make this stuff up every time. And it's not the creme de la creme. It's not the Summer Olympics. I mean, I didn't even understand all of that. When did they start? Because when they said the Gay Paddy Olympics, I'm like, we're doing the Summer Olympics in Paris. No, it's not the Summer Olympics. It's just the Olympics. So we've got 3 Olympics. We've got the Summer Olympics, we've got Olympics, and then we've got the Winter Olympics.
Right.
How the world changes, how the world turns. But you look at it and you say, well, what did they do last time at the Olympics? You know, those viruses and the death and all that.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
the Commonwealth Games that they had in my hometown with the bull and all the representation of the mining and the underground tunnels and all that. Like, wait, who thinks? Like, I mean, you're sitting in the audience, you're sitting at home. I mean, with this latest fuckery, disgusting nastiness that they put on the thing, the mockery of Christianity and the depiction of the Last Supper, and all of the demon stuff. It's like people looking at that. Is that entertaining? At some points, do you not think, what has this got to do with the Olympics? Before, they used to just like do gambols and stuff, and they'd run with flags, and you know, they'd all come together, and it would be the USA flag, and then they'd all come together, and it would be this flag, and all twirling things, people jumping. Oh no, it's a new day, Mark. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, it's a new day. We have to do outlandish stuff. What for, though? That's the question. What is the purpose behind all this, Mark? Is this? What's that thing where they have to show what they're doing? Is it before they do it, kind of thing?
Right. Revelation of the method.
Yes. Is it just literally that, and the blatancy, the overtness of it?
You know what?
It's almost challenge. Like, come on, what are you going to say about this? Come on, guys. What?
Now, I feel like it's almost like there's an element of that to it, but it's almost, you know, and this is going to sound real nutty for some people, but it's almost like programming, right? Like, it's not going to work on folks like us who have the reaction of like, but that reaction is a subtle group think negator, like a negative factor for those who are susceptible for it. So they see, oh, wow, look at how this person that I already disagree with is responding to this Olympic Games. There must be something special about this that I can appreciate that they can't. And then they ingrain it into the way they see the world. And at that point, it's almost like it works as a double-edged sword where you divide people who, you know, are otherwise probably family members or friends or just maybe in the same community at the very least. And then you also sort of align people to this subtle esoteric, which they always pose as just high art. Oh, it's art that you can appreciate, right? And for the 2024 Summer Olympic Games, you have Thomas Jolly, who directed this, and they took a boat down the River Seine. This is where all the athletes go, and this was definitely a choice made for purpose. I think there's, you know, we've talked about it plenty of times on this show, the significance of rivers and how they play in. Yep, and the Seine is a river that has a very long ancient history, possibly going all the way into pre-flood times. And so when it comes to this specific performance that Thomas Jolly directed, great name, Thomas Jolly in Gay Paris. For a second earlier with your accent, I thought you were saying Gay Patty, and I'm like, wait, Patty Pimpleton's involved here too? But no, it's Gay Patty. But yeah, above all, I want this ceremony to include everyone. We must all celebrate this diversity. So this was Thomas Jolly's like thesis statement for his ceremony that he directed, okay? If you can believe that, because what he chose to include everyone is a scene of drag queens arranged in a row, linked to represent a pagan feast, linked to the gods of Olympics. However, the scene was widely interpreted as a recreation of the Leonardo da Vinci fresco The Last Supper, which depicts Jesus and the 12 apostles, obviously. And this was criticized all over the world. If you look up 2024 Summer Olympic Games, most of it is now on YouTube. A lot of like apology videos. There's like an official apology, and so on and so forth. But a lot of reactions from the conservative, element of the world, which I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I don't know that they're necessarily recognizing the truth in this situation. Yes, on the sort of subtle, sort of superficial side of it, yeah, it's mocking the Last Supper, but there's definitely more to these ceremonies.
I was getting
right?
Lupercanus vibes from it as well.
Well, and to bring it back to what you were saying earlier, where, it's this revelation of the method, like, hey, look what we're doing in plain sight. Like, are you clever enough to figure it out? I feel like that has almost transcended that to where now they know, okay, well, these sort of things are going to upset a certain group of people, but that's only going to make our power greater, right? Because they're doing this like inversion magic where, I don't know, I mean, potentially the world is altered based on these ceremonies. And you pointed out, like, they used to be kind of benign sort of, I don't know, what would you call it? Exhibitions of like athleticism.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, it's in a sense that you didn't. Well, unless there was some outside of the high tech ways that they can do the programming with the flicker rates and stuff. I was watching it and just seeing, as I say, just fun people athletically doing things, the ribbons and throwing things up in the air. Like it was just fun. That was the opening ceremony. Drums, trumpets, all of that kind of stuff. Birds. I think they used to let off. Did they let off a dove or something at these events? I can't even remember anymore. A load of doves.
Standard ceremonial stuff.
Yeah. But I think it's the point where we're at now with the genetically modified homogenizing and the social engineering. It's basically pick a side. So the ones who have still got their head down, like, look, I can't, Mark, no, but wait, you think I've got time to start researching stuff? I'm just about paying my bloody bills, man. I got to keep my wife happy. I've got 3 children, 3 kids, 3 baby goats. I've got 3 baby goats. And, I just haven't got the time or the inclination. So if they said up is down and down is up, if that's what's going to get me through today, I'm just going to do it.
Right. Yeah.
So they're seeing this and they're saying, well, look, maybe next week I can identify as that, because look at the power in this. The old way is the old way. The new way, I can see an avenue. Maybe if I just put some lipstick on, start to, like, I can buy a pair of high heels online from the old Amazon. I can walk up and down in the house for a couple of hours, get to start to, so I don't look a total idiot. And I can start saying I'm a woman. I can then be successful. I can get a job at my job. I will get, with the diversity, quotas and all this weird stuff that's happening. They will say, now you can be the operations manager. You fit the criteria. So it's getting where you fit in.
Right.
Whereas the old stubborn people, the people who will maybe cut from a different cloth or who have maybe experienced something that made them say, wait a minute, that was wrong, or I didn't like how that happened. And based upon them doing due diligence, them researching something, they stumble into a whole rabbit hole and a spider web of stuff that say, once you open the genie's bottle, quote unquote, it's like, I can't put it back on. Like, you wake up, when I wake up, why would you go back to sleep? And that's what we're faced with. We're faced with a battle, and literally, going old school, it's good and evil, isn't it? Ultimately, it's good and evil. And we've just got slightly different ways of how people want to be wicked and evil. And they're trying their hardest to grab as much of the good people because the lines are so blurred. What is good these days? And what is bad? In the verbiage, bad means good.
Well, and how better to symbolize this inversion than a hot air balloon over a Olympic cauldron is what they called this. This art piece. Okay, have you seen this?
No, I have not actually.
So it's funny you haven't because it sounds like you're symbolically picking up on it intuitively. Because this is some kind of, I'll screen share it so you can see. This is an audio only episode, folks, so don't comment and ask, where's the video, Mark? But
oh wow, that is crazy.
So
how is that?
Apparently, this is a hot air balloon. What's that?
Sorry, I think you just explained it. I was about to say, it's a helium balloon.
Yeah, so this is a hot air balloon, and those what appear to be flames are actually, I guess, some sort of like LED light. So it's like a very expensive, like a fake fireplace type thing.
Yes.
Right. So, but the hot air balloon is, it's suspended by some sort of gas. Maybe it's meant to invoke that as well, because if it was a real hot air balloon, you'd have a hole at the bottom of the balloon, and there would be, the heat would be going into the balloon itself. But that doesn't seem to be what's happening here. So with that, let's wrap up here because I know you got to go. It is much later over there. That was another thing with the fights is they curtailed it to the American audience and had you guys up till like 6 a.m. So I don't want to do that to you now. So remind the audience where they can go. You did a full breakdown of the fight card for UFC 304. So if people are interested in hearing more of that, that's one of your the episodes at the top of the RSS feed. But remind people where they can go, all the places to support you, brother. Thanks again for joining me here.
You're most welcome. Catch me on CFR Network on Instagram, the Noble 187, also on Instagram and Twitter. YouTube, CFR Sports for the sports focused stuff, and then CFR Network for the general interviews and breaking news, should we say, and reactions.
Rock on. Well, all of that will be linked in the episode description, folks, so go and click that. Wherever you're listening to this show, you'll find CFR Network, so go and subscribe, and until next time, immerse yourself in the moment wherever you are in the now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was our conversation with Noble. And if you thought, oh, geez, you guys talked about UFC the whole time, well, I'm sorry. There was plenty more to the conversation that you're missing out on Patreon or Substack. We talked further about all the weirdness with the Olympics, and then we went on to talk about some taboo stuff, some things that, we don't normally talk about here on the show, that I think are well worth everyone's time, as well as the UFC talk. As much of a sort of right turn that was into a different topic than we're used to on this show, I still think we found a few conspiracy threads amidst all that, and yeah, I don't know. It at least relates to the global conflict on a very superficial, symbolic level with that main card fight. But anyways, UFC might not be everybody's thing per se, so I'll leave it at that. And I promise we won't get into a trend of that with future episodes. Although I am a fan of martial arts, and we have talked about martial arts on the show. So let me know what you think. Maybe you liked it, maybe you didn't. Let me know on Instagram. Send me a DM. Leave a comment on any of the posts. Usually each episode has its own post, so you can start a conversation about your thoughts on each episode right there. And then it's not just me getting back to you. Other people can chime in too. Don't be shy. It's a warm, welcoming community. We also have the Telegram and the Patreon and the Substack. Beyond that are even deeper communities that you can be a part of if you enjoy this show and you want to engage further. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you subscribe and support Noble on his CFR network, cleverly named as a subtle take back from the dubious and infamous CFR, obviously. He is not aligned with that group in any way, but it's always great to have Noble on the show, and it reminds me of how international this podcast is. Like emails I got today from a gentleman named Vlad. I guess you can maybe guess what country he might live in. Well, he's living in Russia. So shout out to Vlad. Thank you for the email. And I guess that's as much as a clue as I'm willing to give. Although Vlad is not going to be a guest on a future episode, maybe you can guess at what a future episode might be based on that. So anyways, good stuff in store for our international friends, maybe even specifically our Russian friends listening to the podcast. Shout out to all of you. And yeah, Dankeschön. I think that's German, actually. I don't know any Russian words. I gotta learn a few. But anyways, yeah, that's that for this episode of the My Family Thinks I'm Crazy podcast. If you want to hear more from me, obviously sign up on the Patreon or the Substack, and look forward to a big project on the way. We reached our Patreon Substack supporter goal. We set another goal, which I will be talking about very soon. But this next goal, this goal that we just accomplished, since we did so, I went out and I bought a GoPro and I bought a Zoom H4 mic setup so I can do the podcast completely mobile. I don't have to be stuck to a computer or a internet connection or anything like that. I can just do a podcast wherever, literally. So look forward to that. Some new content on the way. I don't have a timeline yet, but definitely by autumn, at the very most, we'll have some brand new My Family Thinks I'm Crazy content on the YouTube for all you YouTube heads. And of course, first dibs to everybody on Patreon and Substack. So if you want to support this new venture into in-person podcasts, exploring weird esoteric places, going out on adventures, well, you're going to have to sign up on the Patreon or the Substack now in order to get it all. If you have trouble finding us on Patreon, well, try typing in patreon.com/MFTIC into your browser. If that doesn't work, go to a search bar and type in My Family Thinks I'm Crazy Patreon. If that doesn't work, go to myfamilythinksimcrazy.com, and there is a Patreon link on our website. So you can sign up and get all that great stuff first. And with that, folks, thank you for tuning in, and immerse yourself in the moment wherever you are in the now.
MFTIC. Broadcasting the moon matrix from the lunar surface. They want you confused, like you never knew your purpose. Hopping through the portals, dismantling the machine. My family thinks I'm crazy, I can't believe what I've seen. Memories of a war, the Pleiadians and Anunnaki, stuck within the genes of a copy of a human body. DNA fractal, the universe within me. Epiphanies of science is hoarded by the Illuminati. puppet masters know the power of the mantra. Repeating mad lies till it has an effect on ya. Subliminal messages hijack your perception, tricking the population with holographic projections. We see through it. The system is unraveling. I'm astral traveling through the library of the Vatican on a sacred journey. I embark with the squad, forever spitting truth like Mark on the pod. Gotta know the facts, never hold back, cause I ain't getting caught up in the soul trap. I dissect the fabric of reality, looking for the answers, searching through the galaxy. You might be feeling stressed out. Depression, anxiety is no measure of health. To be well adjusted to a sick society, you don't even know how powerful you are. We the ones who gonna expose the whole facade. I awoke in a deep underground military base. Zero recollection of how I got to this place. Alien corpses floating in glass cylinders must have been extracted when they crashed into us. Animal hybrids contained in the cages. A lion with the eagle head, monkeys with reptilian faces. Losing my mind and I'm feeling desperate. I look around the room and I see no sign of an exit. All of a sudden the wall flickers away, revealing a hangar full of spacecraft. My getaway, I run to the nearest one. See a guard knock him out, rob him for his plasma gun. Hop in the ship, take the controls. They highly intuitive, I figure it out easily. Lift off, accelerate through a tunnel until I see the light. Fly into the sky, get flanked by 6 F-35s. Gotta know the facts, never hold back, cause I ain't getting caught up in the soul trap. I dissect the fabric of reality, looking for the answers, searching through the galaxy. You might be feeling stressed out. Depression, anxiety is no measure of health. To be well adjusted to a sick society, you don't even know how powerful you are. We the ones who gonna expose the whole facade.